Hey there, I'm Joshua Sheehan. Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. The RV Entrepreneur is a community for RVers that are exploring ways to financially support themselves while living their RV life. And today we have the pleasure of talking with Penny Rose. Penny is a CPA and has been working as a Forensic CPA for the past 20 years. As she retires from that career on her path to financial independence, she's looking forward to taking on more clients in her side business as a CPA and financial consultant for content creators. So if you're an RVer that is creating content online, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc., this episode and Penny's services are directly applicable to you. I think you'll definitely enjoy and learn from what Penny has to say, so let's jump into the interview. Awesome, Penny. Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. Give me the 30-second elevator pitch of who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast. I'm Penny Rose. I am a full-time RVer. My husband and I have been living in our RV for over 2 years, and I am a personal CFO. I help people with their personal finances and their business finances as well.
Personal CFO. I don't know if I've heard that verbiage before. I can deduce what it means, but can you explain it a little more?
Certainly, I like to marry the idea of financial coaching, which is primarily for personal finance, with being a tax professional. I provide tax advisory and tax preparation services, as well as bookkeeping. And being a personal CFO, in my opinion, is looking at the business owner's entire financial picture instead of just looking at their business financial picture and hoping that they have a handle on their personal finances as well.
And does a personal CFO business have a name?
It is Fee Fi Fo Fum.
Does it have anything to do with Jack and the Beanstalk?
No, but that was about money, right? So it is an acronym for personal finance for federal government employees and for financial independence.
Interesting. I think you could totally go with a beanstalk on a logo, though, and it would tie right in. Fee Fi Fo Fum is a side hustle for you at the moment, correct?
Yes. So I have just a little bit over a year left at my full-time job. And as such, my husband and I are stationary in our RV.
Is your full-time job in the financial realm?
Yes, I'm a CPA, and my full-time job is a forensic accountant for the United States government.
Forensic accountant. It sounds like a very flowery way to say you dive into numbers.
I love it, yes. And I get on the stand and say, yes, that's where the money came from. Yes, that's where the money went.
So you're actually like forensic is getting into court cases.
Exactly.
Okay. How did you get into that?
So I started out in banking, and I decided that banking is mostly sales, and it wasn't as interesting as I thought. And so I started moving towards accounting. And then I realized that knowing a lot about how bank accounts work and about how loans work and having a basis in accounting, it was the best possible combination for doing forensic accounting.
I mean, obviously you have to be an accountant to begin with, but then I assume is there just like a job board that's posted said, hey, we need somebody to come work for the government to be a forensic accountant?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
Almost 20 years.
And you're not tired of it yet? You want to continue on and do more financial stuff after official retirement?
Yes, I want to stop doing what I'm doing now and be free to move about the country and the world and continue to do what I love to do. I mean, the pandemic really showed me how much I love not having to be tied to an office.
And so how did you guys get into RVing? You said you want to travel and see more things, but why RV travel?
We knew that we could live in our RV stationary for a period of time before we hit the road. And the appeal was to no longer be homeowners. We felt so much of our lives were being sucked out by having to mow the lawn and paying for lunch or, pool service. And, do you have to get the roof replaced and those types of things. And we wanted to be free from that. And we wanted to test out because we're full-time residents of the state of Florida. And one of the great benefits of living in Florida is that you can RV full-time easily in the state of
Hmm.
Florida. And it gave us the opportunity to know that we could test out, can we live in the RV without moving around, and then do a little bit of travel and get used to it. And it gave us basically an out that I don't know that we would have had if we had waited until we retired to try it out.
Was starting a virtual business part of the plan or the side hustle prior to the pandemic?
No, and it wasn't even when we initially thought about moving into an RV, we just thought we were going to work until we were done work and then retire, and we weren't going to work at all. But my husband and I are both very interested in personal finance and financial independence, and we've gone to a national financial independence conference. We're involved in a local financial independence group, and in every one of those meetings, people talked about what their side hustle was or entrepreneurship. And it really started the juices flowing for me to think about the idea that I could have a business and that I could use the skills that I developed through almost 20 years of being a forensic accountant to actually make money doing what we're doing. And it evolved from there. And the pandemic was definitely a part of knowing that I am disciplined enough to work and accomplish just as much or more outside of the office than inside the office.
Now, I don't think the idea of financial independence is a new one, but it's definitely been gaining popularity over the past decade and a half. Do you remember when you stumbled into just the formalized idea of financial independence?
My husband and I have both been interested in personal finance since we were teenagers, but really this phase that we're in, it's really only been in the last 5 years or so. And we credit that, a lot of that, to podcasts because we're able to have significantly more interaction with people that are big in the personal finance space through podcasts. The podcast led us to the local group that we're a part of. And it's been so liberating to think about how self reliant we're going to be when we reach financial independence.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. So, what are some of your favorite financial independence style podcasts?
Choose Fi is definitely my number one. And that's where it started for me.
Brad and Jonathan do a really good job with that one. I remember
Yeah.
listening to them when they were like in the single digit episodes, and I was like, these guys are going somewhere.
Yep. And I think it was Jonathan was on the Clark Howard show. I heard him interviewed, and Clark Howard hardly ever interviews anybody. And that really kickstarted it for me. And,
Hmm.
we've really evolved from there, from Choose Fi. For me, radical personal finance is another really helpful one because the host of that does financial coaching, or he was in the financial coaching industry. And so he's been amazingly helpful on that.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that Joshua Sheets also did full time RV travel and international travel. So I'm sure there's a lot more alignment there too with what you guys are trying to achieve.
Yes, I was so excited about that. That's absolutely, I mean, I felt like a kindred spirit when I heard that he had done those things and that he lives internationally. And that's something that potentially we may be interested in doing at a later point. And the third one I'm going to mention is Bigger Pockets Money.
Okay, haven't heard of that one.
So it's Scott Trench, and who wrote a book that's very helpful for younger people starting to learn about financial independence, and Mindy Jensen. And they have some amazing speakers, and I found some very helpful information from that podcast as well.
So who needs a personal CFO?
I primarily think that people who have outgrown a DIY system, people who have done their own taxes and start to realize that their business has gotten a little bit too complex for them to know for sure, to have the confidence to do things themselves, and that they're open to speaking with a personal financial expert and listening and asking for different strategies to do things a different way than the way that they've been doing them in the past.
So I've self-realized that I need some additional help. I reach out to you. What kind of services do you provide and can I expect to receive?
So the biggest things that I offer are tax planning and preparation. I offer bookkeeping to people that are their bookkeeping needs are a little bit more advanced than what they've been able to handle themselves. And I also offer financial coaching, which is enough open ended that through a conversation back and forth with a potential client, I will try to figure out what it is would be helpful to them and let them know that, so if your situation is you have a business, but you've also got some debt, and one of your goals is to be debt free, I can help you build your business and get it streamlined for tax purposes and build in a plan for you to get debt free in your personal life.
And so what does a relationship between you and a client look like? What kind of back and forth goes on? How much time is involved? How much contact do you have throughout a year outside of just the tax filing?
So I offer a monthly meeting. Not everybody takes advantage of it, but I will, once I complete all of the work for a month, in the beginning of the following month, I will set up an appointment. And if my client has the opportunity, has the bandwidth to have a meeting, we'll have a conversation and I'll have a few points that I want to talk about, things that I want to make sure they're aware of, things that went really well, things that they need to be aware of that might be negatively impacting their situation. And then I leave a ton of time open for them to have a conversation with me about what's going on in their life and what's going on in their business. And usually when that happens, I can pull out a few threads. I can get a really good idea what their values are, and I can suggest, oh, you're interested in whatever it is, let's build a plan. For instance, I have a client who doesn't own a car, and during a monthly meeting, she said, something that you wouldn't necessarily think like a bookkeeper or a tax professional could help you with. She said, I don't have a car. What's the best way to do it? And those kind of conversations are some of my favorite things to do, because she's got the opportunity to talk about whatever she wants to talk about. And if she chooses to talk about something that's top of mind for her, that's financial, and I have the capability, I'm going to try to help her realize her goals.
So you said people who are past the DIY stage and looking for additional professional help with tax planning and financial services. Do you have a more specific client in mind? Obviously that leaves a pretty wide net to cast. Is there an ideal client out there that you're looking to target?
Yes, my ideal clients are content creators, and I specifically feel a connection to content creators in the RV space, in the cruising space, cruising or general travel, and in personal finance.
Very cool. Well, I think you're talking to the right audience for sure then.
Yep.
At this point, have you reached financial independence?
We are very close, but we have not.
Okay. What will it mean to you when you do? And two, how do you think it will impact your business?
When we reach financial independence, we will feel freedom that we've never felt before. For me, it will mean that I am able to leave my job and not feel the normal stress that somebody feels from leaving a job and not having anything lined up. I think that's going to be one of the most amazing feelings is that I know for sure that we've done everything we can do and everything that we need to do, that I can leave my job and not have a job lined up. And for my business, it will, knowing that I can leave my job and knowing that we've done everything, it'll leave me with a lot more time to pick up the clients that I really want to work with without worrying about getting a high net worth client. I love talking to people that are just starting their businesses and they want more than anything to get off on the right foot. They want to know that they're doing what they need to do. And those aren't going to be the high net worth clients. And I want the freedom to pick up more clients like that and help them grow into being amazing businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And being financially independent will make that much easier. I won't have to worry about, how much of a fee they're going to pay me. I'm going to be able to ask them to compensate me appropriate to the level that they're at.
So there's no shortage of financial or tax questions, in the RV content creators group, and it seems like you're walking into a business model that, one, the content creation business is exploding, and there's tons of people out there who are just like, hey, I'm doing this, it's working, I've never run a business before, I need some help. So you've got a lot of potential clients. How are you balancing, wanting to help all those people and taking on all these clients while still needing to balance your 9 to 5 until you can retire and jump into this full time?
It's a balance, and I'm glad you asked it that way because it's having to continue to market myself even when I'm crazy busy because I just took on a new client and there's more work to do at the beginning than any other time. And
Sure.
the thing that makes it easier for me to spend the time to do it is because I love it. I love working on finances. It's just enough different from the experience that I have in my job that it feels like a break to me. It feels like an opportunity to do something very different. And I get more satisfaction out of working specifically for somebody when I know that they have a need and I'm able to give them the confidence that their finances are where they need to be. Whereas in my 9 to 5 job, I get satisfaction from it, but I don't see how what I actually do helps benefits like a specific person that I can see. And so it's enough different that I'm happy to put in the time to do it. And it's funny because a lot of times I'll be working in the car while my husband is driving, and it works really well. And that's some of how I'm able to juggle both things is because I can still spend time with my husband because I'm not having to go to a specific location to do something. I'm able to fill in the cracks in my day with work and still spend plenty of time with my husband.
Do you think that having started this business will launch you into full time traveling RVing and financial independence sooner?
Yes, definitely. Prior to launching this business, I thought I was going to have to work 3 years longer than I am now. So it will give me a combination of both. It will put
Mm-hmm.
me where I need to be that I can walk away from my job early. It's a combination of both. And absolutely, that's the plan. That's where we're at. And my business it's growing at a pace that shows me that as soon as I don't have to sit at my desk, that once I leave, I'll have plenty of opportunities to sign on new clients.
I definitely don't think you'll have trouble filling spots when you say, okay, fill my day with things to do. Because as I said, the conversation every other day, content creator groups that I'm in is, hey, how do I do this? How do I structure this? And CPAs and professional financial advice is definitely a weak link for a lot of folks that are in the creative mindset. And so
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to jump into that demographic.
The other thing that content creators wouldn't necessarily know, and hopefully they'll be able to structure things properly and they won't ever know this, but the IRS is concerned with content creators and they're getting extra scrutiny. And so that wouldn't be something that somebody was aware of, but that's an additional reason to look to ask those questions and to get it set up properly.
Can you tell me more about what you mean if they're gaining more attention and getting more scrutiny?
Well, the biggest things that are happening is it's mostly in terms of Instagram and YouTube, and the influencers are known to be getting a lot of gifts, and the gifts are portrayed either in a YouTube or on Instagram, and IRS would like to make sure that the content creator is accounting for those gifts appropriately.
So what's the appropriate way to account for those gifts?
So it's income.
And is that based off of the retail value, wholesale value?
No, it's so value is based on what a willing buyer and a willing seller would trade. So if I win a car tomorrow and I take possession of the car and I drive it down the street to the nearest car dealership and I sell it, whatever that car dealership gives me for that car is the fair market value.
Okay. So it's definitely not going to be retail.
Right.
It's probably a little more than wholesale.
Yep.
Okay. And so that would apply down to anything like free swag, like a hat, branded hats, or is there a certain monetary threshold where folks need to be reporting that income, I guess?
Yeah, they're looking at the bigger ticket items. They're looking at experiences where there's a particular court case that is moving through the process right now where a company flew a whole bunch of influencers to a foreign country for a week-long experience that included, it was all expense paid and quite luxurious. And so they're really, it's not going to be your hats. It's going to be more like your 1 week all-inclusive trips.
And so the IRS is proposing this, and it's obviously not settled yet because it's still in court.
Yep.
But that those influencers should then take the value of that experience as income?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on which way it'll go?
I think it's going to split down the middle. I think the influencer is going to have to claim some of the income, but I think what IRS is asking for is closer to a retail value. And I think the companies that are paying the influencers, if they provide actual out-of-pocket detail of what came out of pocket, I think that's more likely to be what ends up. But I don't see the influencers coming out of that court case without having to owe some back taxes.
Interesting. And then that sets precedents for everyone else, right?
Yes. Yeah, so that's why these kinds of things, while, it starts out at the larger dollar amounts, you need to be on people's radar.
Is there anything else that comes to mind that's currently ongoing as far as this new position as an influencer that involves taxes?
No, I think the case that I talked about it is the biggest thing. Just not reporting enough income. I mean, I'm sure there are other cases that don't make the news, but they're specifically focusing on, IRS looks at two different things. They look at, are you underreporting your income or are you overstating your expenses? And it's fairly commonly known that content creators don't have a lot of expenses compared to like a payroll company. Somebody that provides employees to work in a medical complex is going to have really high expenses, but a content creator is going to have modest expenses. IRS really isn't going to be looking for somebody overstating their expenses. They're going to be looking for somebody that's understating their income.
Interesting. Yeah, the whole can of worms. And just the evolution of new businesses and new opportunities presenting, and then tax code trying to catch up.
Yes. Yep, that's a good way to put it.
What has been some of the struggles of starting this business?
In the very beginning, the biggest struggle for me was getting my ideal client signed up. I started my networking machine working, and I was getting referrals, but I wasn't getting referrals of my ideal clients.
Mm,
And I the way that networking has been working for me is that I basically have to be 6 months ahead. So I need to be doing something today that will come to fruition in 6 months. And
okay.
it's more a function of having the patience to know that if I put myself out there and I have an abundance mindset, that eventually someone will go in the RV Entrepreneur podcast list and look for every financial professional they can find, and they will listen. They'll, binge listen to everything related, and they'll say, "Oh, that person speaks to me." And that could be a year from now. I'm totally open to the opportunity that I look for every opportunity I can get today, and I can't be tied to the results right away. I have to
Yeah.
know that it's down the road that it's going to happen. And, for people that start their own businesses, patience is not, you don't think that's your struggle is going to be, I need to be patient, that I'm going to have all the clients, all the type of clients that I want.
Hmm. Yeah, you definitely seem to be straddling that line of your ideal client being content creators. You also, therefore, have to be creating your own content. And a lot of times, what's really hard for new content creators to realize is that the things that you put out today might not jump off until 6, 9, 12, 18 months later. But it's the consistency over time that then when it does pop off, you've got a backlog of things that people can say, oh, I'm going to go find this. I'm going to go listen to this. And so even just you being on this podcast, you're right. They're going to be able to go to your website and see, oh, look at all these services she's got offering. When a year and a half ago, you might not have had all of those services and or the availability to take on a new client. But again, I'm going to jump back to Jack and the Beanstalk here. You're planting the bean with the stalk going to be growing.
I love it. I'm going to have to change my logo now.
No, I think your story about how it came to be with the acronym makes a ton of sense too. So, but when I read it, I was like, that just makes me think of Jack and the Beanstalk.
That's how it started, because FE is for federal employees and FI is for financial independence. And I kept saying FI. And then it was like, there was no other way. Like once I said FI twice, it was like my mind filled in the blank. What else could it
Yeah.
be?
So when you guys head off full time, do you have a route destination, or are you just gonna to jump in the RV and go?
So we are stationary in Florida right now, and we are hoping to go to Mexico because we still have pets and we love our pets. And as long as we have them, we want to RV full time and do a little bit of international travel. And so Mexico is our number one location. So it's going to be a westward trip. I would love to arrange it so that we go to Quartzsite for the big tent, the whole big rubber tramp rendezvous, and then once that's over, head down to Mexico.
Are you guys doing any traveling as it is, or are you completely stationary?
We are traveling on the weekend. I'm going to be speaking at Podfest a week from Sunday. And so we're going to be in Orlando for part of a week then. And then we are booked to go to a very swanky RV park in Savannah, Georgia. And I am so excited to be able to start moving around a little bit.
Do you guys keep your stationary site, like you have a year-long contract and you just have some place to go back to, or are you jumping around in Florida?
We have found that if we jump around, our rates end up going up. And so right now we are stationary in a contract in the location where I work. Once we sold our house, we had enough money left over that we bought an RV slip in Davenport, Florida, which is right around the Disney I-4 area, and it's country club, golf, tennis, pools, the whole 9 yards, but it's all RVs. And we are able to go back and forth between the stationary location that's by my office and Davenport and be able to start enjoying our lot. And so we get a little bit of a change of scenery that way.
And do you plan on keeping either of those when you quit your 9 to 5 and launch full-time traveling?
Yeah, we're going to keep the property in Davenport. And it does really well because it's a snowbird park. And we will, when we want to be traveling, we can schedule our travel around having the rental agent rent our lot. And then during the season when it's unlikely to be rented, we can stay on it ourselves.
And is that a service that the HOA or the community offers, or is that an individual that you found to do booking for you when you're not there?
It's a company that is stationed inside the development. They are the exclusive realtor for it, and that's who we purchased the lot from. And they also offer property management. So it's very convenient. They are able to rent it more easily. They live there themselves, and they know the snowbirds that come in every year.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool business model of, hey, we've got this property. We can go back when we want. It's almost short-term cabin rental, but it's just an RV spot.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a really good way to, again, get a little bit more income when you're not there. Because what are they going to mess up on an RV site?
Exactly.
It's not like there's a house that come home to be trashed. I mean, you've got water, sewer, electricity, and that's it. Plus, it doesn't sound like it's the type of place that's going to have things trashed either. So that's a really cool model.
Yeah, we're very happy with it.
So going forward, what does your business growth look like, and what is, if you were to define what success looks like for Fee Fi Fo Fum in the future, how would you define that?
I anticipate my business is probably at 25% capacity right now, and I envision it easily being 100% or more, and pretty close to when I leave my job. And success is really going to be not so much the success of my business, it's going to be the success of my clients. I'm going to celebrate. I can't wait until the first client I have achieves their own financial independence. I read the book Go Giver. I love that book. I absolutely love that concept. And I want to be able to influence people positively so that they can change the trajectory of not only their business, but of their own personal finances.
Very cool. That's awesome. And I think that service-minded of helping others through things that you get excited about is definitely a recipe for a successful business.
Thank you. I mean, and that's how I chose my ideal client, is because my husband and I, while we were still living in our house and dreaming of living in our RV full time, we were consuming, so many YouTubes and just binge watching people that were living in their RVs full time and producing content. And when I started to develop my business, I thought, well, wouldn't it be fantastic if I was able to help some of those people achieve confidence that things were being handled appropriately? I mean, they're the content creators, and they're out there doing what they do best, and it will give them the opportunity to not worry about their finances, know somebody else has their back in terms of their money. And it seemed like a great way to choose a niche for me.
So if someone has resonated with what you said today and they're interested in checking out more of your services, where can they go online to find that?
I'm active on Instagram, and I'm Fee Fi Fo Fum Personal CFO altogether on Instagram. And I'm active on LinkedIn as well. And I am Penny C. Rose CPA.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put all those links in the show notes. Penny, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to jump on a call with us. I think you've got a bright future ahead with this business. I think there's a ton of people listening to this podcast that are ripe for your demographic and that need some financial guidance, because as we pointed out, a lot of times the folks that are good at creating, they have that creative mind, the numbers don't necessarily come naturally, and that's a pain point for them. So I'm excited to see what happens in the future. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you. This has been awesome.
I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Penny. She's a very cool lady. I got to meet her in person at the Tampa RV show this past winter. And the business model that she's providing for RVers, specifically content creators, is really cool. I know as a content creator myself, a lot of the questions around content creation and influencers and just that whole sphere of this new business model, there's a lot of unknowns. And as she pointed out with that court case going through right now, there's things that are getting figured out. And it's really cool to have someone who's interested in specifically helping content creators with their tax and CPA and bookkeeping, all those financial services. So if you guys are interested in connecting with Penny Rose, make sure you check out her website. I'll put a link to all those things in the episode description. And if you want to connect with her or any of the other guests in the Facebook group, jump over to the RVentrepreneur.com/Facebook group and join us there for some off-the-air conversations. You can always find us on all the other socials at the RVentrepreneur.com/connect. And if you think you'd be a great guest for the RV Entrepreneur podcast, fill out the guest form. The RVentrepreneur.com/guest form is the place to do that. Until next time, we'll see you on the road. Happy trails.